Good morning from New Hampshire. Sitting here on Civil Rights Day, um, waiting for the snow to stop that we're getting more of. This is our third storm in the past 2 days. Nothing's been really huge, but probably gotten about 6 inches so far and continuing to fall. I want to talk today a little bit. I've had a lot of people ask me in the past, what does the name Absolute Pursuit mean? And it's a number of different things, but it all boils down to one thing. And I've explained it in some of my blogs in the past, but a lot of people are kind of kicking the reading out of their life and moving on to just videos, so I figured I'd explain it here too. Absolute Pursuit is the name of my business slash homestead slash lifestyle, and really what it is it's the pursuit of absolution. For me, that is another way of saying that I am looking to get closer to my spirituality through doing meaningful work. One of my mottos with that is, as a Christian, that doing God's work is showing God's love. That's a pretty powerful statement for me. And taken from just the words and what it inspires, most people look at that and immediately it's, oh, you just go around showing love for everybody. Yes, but there's a lot more to it. Meaningful work to me is, and in a lot of places it's, they want to go out and find more people for their church or find more people for their religion or, feed the homeless or, I should say feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, rescuing animals. It could be anything along those lines. For me, yes, I obviously believe all those things are good, but it's a lot more simple to me. Any work that you do, you should do with all of the passion that you have for life. If you don't enjoy the work, you need to find better work that you do enjoy. Some people can't stand doing the things that I do. I love making things with hand tools. Yeah, machines are great, and I do use them. They do make things more simple. But when I was growing up, my father gave me my first sets of tools in carpentry, and it was a Swiss Army knife, a draw knife, a hand planer, some screwdrivers and some wrenches. That was all I was allowed to use until I was able to master those tools. When I was able to master the hand planer, the draw knife, I got hand saws, I got human-powered drills, things with a little bit more moving parts or sharp teeth or things that you had to take care of. You had to know a little bit more, have a little bit more experience to work with. And then from there, he taught me how to use a table saw, a band saw, a drill, like a power drill, then a drill press, a lathe, a jigsaw or scroll saw or whatever they call it now. And it's powerful to be able to use those tools, but it doesn't bring about the same sense of pride to me. Now, everybody's different. You know, there are some people that will get a CNC machine and be perfectly happy to plug things into a computer all day and put a couple of boards on the thing and have it spit out the end result. I like taking a little bit more time in the things that I do, and I love handmade items. You know, for example, I made this mallet. Simple, effective, you know, a rough mallet, couple of pins in it, wood. I hand drilled the holes for those. You can actually still see some of the carving marks on the handle, and then lots and lots of sanding, and I'm still not done sanding. But, you know, I made it by hand. There was no electricity involved in it. And to me, that's my way of, one of my ways of doing God's work. You know, an appreciation for handmade stuff, doing things by hand. A friend of mine made this hat for me, you know, crocheted. That's a heck of a job. That's a lot of work that goes into these things. You know, I can't even crochet more than a straight line. So I look at this and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work put into this. And while it may have only taken her a few hours, I mean, honestly, I don't know. Sorry, Sky. The amount of work that got her to the point where she could do this is a ton of work. The same way the amount of work that I went through in my life to learn all the cuts, all the different tools that went into making this is a lot of work. That is all meaningful work. You know, your meaningful work might be working on a shop saber or a Haas or a Bridgeport, you know, or a sewing machine. For me, it's mostly using hand tools. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean I don't use power tools. I do quite often. One of my businesses that I run is a property management business. If I were to sit there and tell somebody, yes, I'll build a deck for you, and then I'm out there with a handsaw cutting the boards, and I'm charging them an hourly rate, they're gonna freak out. Yeah, sometimes people want handmade stuff, but it's usually not in construction. It's not in maintenance. So knowing how to use the power tools, yes, you need that. But I move towards a simpler life. I'm going to eventually build my own house. That's simple. Having somebody else build it for you, that gets complicated. You've got architects involved, you've got builders involved, you've got designers involved. Everybody goes through and wants to put their spin on it, and you get an attempt at a work of art. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not as functional as it should be. I've had the benefit of working in a ton of different trades, so I know when I build my house what I need to do to make sure that it's warm, holds heat, or repels heat, depending upon the time of year, or I should say holds out heat. I know what I need to do to keep mice and rats and things like that out of the house. Squirrels and bats, you don't want those in your house. A lot of that is in the construction of the house. Yes, you can actually mouse-proof a house. It's possible. I've done it. Matter of fact, I spent years doing that for a business. And it would have been a lot easier and a lot cheaper for me to have come in before the house was built, and as they were building the house, just put in some little extra details that would have kept everything out. But getting back to it, you know, it's moving towards a simpler life. It's moving towards being more spiritual, whether it be meditating, whether it be, you know, some people go to church. I'm not a churchgoer. I am Christian. I know there are non-denominational churches out there, um, but I'm more of a person who practices on my own, and I practice daily. Um, a lot of the problems that I have with what I see with church is people act like jerks 6 days a week and then go to church and think they're okay. That's not really doing God's work. That's doing your own thing and then asking for forgiveness. Um, not a lifestyle I want. And I'm not saying everybody does that. I see the 3% or 1% that stands out. And it's funny that I have to explain that when I sit there and tell people, like, you look at the world today, it's the 1% that you're seeing, and that's where all the animosity is. The rest of the world is just sitting back doing their own thing and making the best life they possibly can. And a lot of folks come to this lifestyle, this simple life that I talk about, and they expect it to be an easier life. Simple is not easy. Simple is basic. And doing the basics is often harder than doing the more complex things. You know, same way with building these handmade things. That's the simple way of doing it. It doesn't require power, but it does require a lot of work. And one of the things that I just love doing is putting that time into things, because that's my love, that's my passion, that's going into making these things. And eventually those tools will help me make other things, you know, and eventually make a life. I mean, I have a life and I made this life, but, you know, in my 40s now, I'm now learning from the mistakes that I made in the rest of my life, which is important. That in order to become closer to my spirituality, closer to God, these are the things that I need to do, and to move towards being in a simpler world. So anyway, that's my pursuit. I am chasing absolution. I am chasing the ability to be closer to God. I'm just doing it really slowly because that's where I feel closer. So I hope that helps people understand exactly what I'm doing and exactly why I called this program, if you will, Absolute Pursuit or Absolute Pursuits. That's the dream. That's where I'm headed. Thanks. Have a great day.